Hey guys, welcome back. Before we get started, reminder, subscribe to the channel. If you have never been here before, my name is Michael Lenoci. I'm a stand-up comedian living out of Los Angeles, California. I was born in South Florida, diehard Miami Dolphins fan, going back to the late 80s, early 90s. So I have all the pain that you have if you're watching this. One of my longtime goals is to tour doing stand-up comedy, but also do a Miami Dolphins podcast on the road. So I want to build my following from Miami Dolphin fans. So like and subscribe, and we'll get into it. Week 3 in the books. I waited until the full week 3 was done before I did a recap. I didn't want to do one Friday. Going into the game, I didn't expect us to win. I did, in the back of my head, think that it would be a closer game. I wasn't going to say it out loud because I didn't want to argue with people. And I don't think our team is as bad as we have looked. And each week we have gotten better. Now, does that mean it's time to be delusional? No, it does not, because we have agreed that we want to move on from Tua. On my channel, I have agreed that, hey, I'm done with Tua. I know that he's never going to take us to the promised land. And yes, is there a world where the O-line's perfect, the defense is top 5, that we could win a playoff game? Sure, you could argue that. You could definitely argue that we could win a playoff game. But we're never going to get to a Super Bowl with Tua or this team. It's just not going to happen. When you watch, even though the Ravens are 1-2, that's a complete team. They lost to the Detroit Lions, which we'll get into later, and they lost to the Buffalo Bills. Would you be surprised if the Super Bowl was the Buffalo Bills versus Detroit Lions? You would not. So, Ravens are a team that is so good that they can't get over the hump. And I wish we were even at that point, but we're not even there. And I don't even think we will be a playoff team ever again with this group, okay? And I think a lot of us feel that way. And obviously, the fan base and the media and everybody was kind of off of this team after the Indianapolis game. And then the Patriots game, we showed some sparks, but then you showed Tua not looking comfortable. His footwork is bad. Just mistakes here and there. The defense starting off slow, but coming together in the second half, and then just the O-line's horrible, and then the punt return, and then week 3 comes in the book, and you're like, we know how desperate we are. It's a short week. You're playing the best team in the NFL, arguably. And they fought. They fought enough to save the jobs of a lot of people. Because I said, and I go back to week 2, I go, if we were to lose 35-10, I would expect a coordinator or someone to be fired. Something would happen. But because they played so well, and I wonder if they would have won the game. You know what I mean? I wonder, if Tua doesn't throw the interception, do they go for 2? If they tie it, if it's 28-27, are they going for 2? I would want them to. Why not? But if Sealer doesn't make a bonehead play, I just don't understand. Let's just get the ball back. We got momentum. We have a lot of momentum on us. I wonder what happens if we go down and we score and we're up 28-21 and we give them the ball back. Plenty of time for them to score, but I wonder if our defense is this is our moment now. I wonder if we win that game. And part of me thinks that could have possibly happened if Sealer doesn't make that mistake. And I would think that would change the narrative across the board. And I think it would bring us back to the delusional war that we've faced over the last 6 seasons. And it would have been fun. And we still would have ended. It would have ended in the playoffs. I promise you that. But it would have changed some narratives because we would have went to Buffalo, beat a good team, won a hard game. We would be 1-2, which is nothing right now. If you go, look, the Ravens are 1-2. The first place team in the North is the Steelers and Bengals at 2-1. Nobody's fearing them. Nobody, if we had to play the Steelers or Bengals next week, you would be like, we could win. For how bad we've been, you'd be like, we could win, all right? And then The Colts look great. They're 3-0. They're playing perfect. The rest of the division, Jags, you wouldn't be like, oh, we're definitely going to lose. You would expect we'd probably be an underdog, but you wouldn't be like terrified of the Jags. And then the Texans and Titans are 0-3. And then you go to the West, which is a little bit better, but like you wouldn't fear the Raiders. You wouldn't necessarily fear the Broncos. You would expect them to beat us. And you would know the Chargers are going to beat us. And then you probably expect the Chiefs to beat us, even though they're 1-2. So like 1-2 is not so bad if you did somehow miraculously pull off the win. But we didn't. And at the end of the day, there is no moral victories. And I do think there is sometimes. I think there's a lot of moral victories. You know, you can definitely convince yourself that your team has a moral victory. And if we were 2-0 and we still had the narrative of can't beat good teams and we lost the game, how we lost, and we were 2-1 right now, you could argue that that's a bit of a moral victory because you could be like, hey, that's the best team in the AFC for sure, besides the Chargers, and we were right there. We were right there. We made Josh Allen go 3 and out 3 times. You would be like, we're a tough team. You would be like, this is a fun season. And then that's a case where there would be a moral victory. And I know that people think there is no moral victories, but it would give me confidence that this team can beat good teams and that we would have to get one of those road wins. Again, I have my schedule to the right to look at the Dolphins. Some of the big road games that you have to win later in the season would be the Monday night game against the Steelers. The Ravens game is on the road. And then obviously Washington, but that's kind of a neutral ground. But other than that, Buffalo and Chargers at home, but that's home. It's like winning away games against tough teams. That being said, I think there's a road here where we could be delusional again. And it's fun. It's fun because like I said, man, as I was watching the Bills game, this was entertaining. And that's what I have to hope for as a Dolphins fan. Like each of the last 4 or 5 years, I've been entertained in December and was like, oh, if we win here, we'll make the playoffs, right? Less entertaining last year because of how ugly we looked and also knowing that, oh, we have to beat the Jets and then the Broncos have to lose to the Chiefs, but the Chiefs are benching everyone. So it wasn't as fun. That was the first time it wasn't as fun. The 2 previous years before that, we had to win to get in. We were already in, but the year before that, we had to win to get in. And then, we were always even, Flores' last year, it was like, if we beat the Titans, then we might make the playoffs. Like there was like a, what if we do this in the December situation? So I always say to people like, yeah, we're stuck in mediocrity. I'm like, it's entertaining though. And that's all you can hope for is having an entertaining franchise or team. Whereas if it's the Browns or Saints, you're like, this sucks. And now you could argue that would be us this year. This sucks. But because of what we saw, it shows that maybe it's September football. The defense needs to figure some things out. We don't get enough turnovers. That's already a problem. Through 3 games, against the Patriots, I think we had 1, right? Did we even? I mean, we don't get any interceptions. I don't think we've had any. So that's frustrating. We've gotten some sacks, and they've helped. But offensively, they've shown little sparks of like being able to move the ball, but it's long drives again. Like against the Bills, it was long drives. No big plays like last year. So that's concerning. And someone said, I forgot who said it, but it's like you can't always score on 10, 11, 12 play drives. It's just not sustainable because people are going to get tired. And maybe you're tiring their defense, but your offensive players are going to get tired. And there's got to be some sort of consistency with big plays, and it's just not there. And it goes to Tua's regression. He's not, I said this last week, he's regressed. And in that situation, he's putting up the same numbers as his rookie year. He's playing like a rookie quarterback, and that's frustrating. And so you can't have high hopes for this season. But then you look at the schedule, and we're home against the Jets next week. And I got to think we're going to win. And the Jets are not going to go down easily. I don't think this is going to be a blowout. It's going to be a tough game. I hope Tyrod's playing. I think Justin Fields gives them a better chance to win. But I think it's going to be a game where, I mean, before we get into that, I just want to kind of highlight the fact that they didn't give up on McDaniel. I was just actually really shocked. I was shocked because the Buffalo game proved that the locker room was not lost. And so much of the outside noise is that Mike McDaniel's done. He doesn't know what to do with this team. They don't like him. They're not there for him. And they came out and were like, no, we want to win. And I'm curious because I think that, excuse me, I think that a lot of the guys in the NFL know it's a long season. There's 14 games left. Hypothetically, you could go 4-6, and there could be 7 games left, and you could go 6-1, and you're in the playoffs. You could get to 4-6. So if you wanted to get to 4-6, that would require you to go 4-3 in the next 7 games, just above 500. You can do that. You could be a team after seeing what they were against the Patriots and Bills. Can they be a 500 team in the next 3 games and in the next 6 games? Could they go 3-3? Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. So you could be 3-6 for sure. Okay? And then you win and you're 4-6 and there's 7 games left and you go 7 in a row. You turn it around. I'm just giving you an example of how long the season is. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen for us. Again, I just want to emphasize on this. I don't believe that Tua's the guy. I think 6 years is long enough, and the regression concerns me. And I'm just like, when I watch Lamar and Josh Allen, and even when Mahomes' team is, the Chiefs aren't as good. It's clear as day, but he's still Mahomes. And then you watch Justin Herbert, who's like playing like an MVP. You're like, he's not in the same level as these guys. He's just not. So what are we doing? And then, why wouldn't we draft a guy next year? Especially at this point, you could argue that we're going to have a top 10 pick. If you're going to have a top 10 pick, draft a quarterback. He's going to be our starter next year, Tua. So have a young guy sit behind Tua and just compete. If you're stuck with Tua for another year, even if you go off his contract next year, if McDaniel got fired and the GM got fired and they cleaned the house and a new coach came in, no, what's the point of just dumping Tua? You might as well just have a rookie sit behind him. You're paying him $51 whether you release him or not. And then the next year you can move on from it with the dead cap space and you have a rookie contract. That's my theory. But I don't know. I'm just saying nothing great is going to come. I want you to know that that's where my head is at. But let's play around a little bit, okay? Let's play around and have some optimism because that's what I always do on this channel. I like to get delusional. I like to react to the losses. But then I see a road because of what I saw in Buffalo. It made me go, okay, they haven't checked out yet, and they will. There's a game where they're going to check out, but if they play the Jets, and I expect to win, we get to 1-3. All right, we basically have an extended bye week, right? You have plenty of time to prepare for the New York Jets. You're at home, Monday night rivalry jerseys. I think it's all the black. That's exciting. It's the toilet bowl. And we're favored by -2.5. I think that goes up to 3. By the time we get to the game, we're a little bit away. I think people are going to bet on the Dolphins a little bit, especially if we find out about the quarterback situation of the Jets. I think that we win this game. Now, if we didn't, alarm the fire drill. Okay, then I think we all agree 0-4, players are shipped out, someone's fired. Unfortunately, I don't think GMs get fired during the season. It rarely happens. So it could be Mike McDaniel, right? If not a coordinator first. But then I go back to what I was saying last episode. There's pieces that we can get capital for, right? Tyreek, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, even Zach Sealer. You know what I mean? Like there's pieces that other teams could use that would be, look, you could argue that Jalen Phillips or Bradley Chubb, you could trade them to the 49ers right now. They're 3-0. They just lost Bosa. So I think that's something to look at. You have to win the next two games. If you lose either of the next 2 weeks, which is the Jets and the Carolina Panthers, sound the alarms. And you have valid pieces of of guys that are needed. I mean, the 49ers, Mike McDaniel's close with them. It jumps to my mind right away. Jalen Phillips or Bradley Chubb, you send them over to the 49ers. They need a guy like that desperately. They're going to be a playoff team probably, or in the playoff hunt, clearly. So there's value there. And then I'm trying to think around the league. There's other players. There's other teams that could use that. Obviously, you're not going to trade anyone of the Bills, but even if it's the Chiefs or if it's the Chargers, if Khalil Mack is not coming back later, there's players there. And it just goes back. It goes to if they do lose one of these next two games. Now, do I think they could win both of these games? Absolutely. I think after the next two games, we could be 2-3, and based off how they look, there's a little bit of optimism, right? And some delusion where fans are going to get into the area of we could do this, we could get right there. Because in 2 weeks, if you win two in a row, you're going to look around the AFC and you're going to be like, well, we're only one game back of a playoff spot. Because that's how it's going to be. Because if you look at our division, everyone has 2 losses or more. The North will have 2 losses or more between. I promise you that the Bengals and Steelers will have 2 losses in the next 2 weeks, possibly. And then you have the South, which it's you have the Jags at 2nd and 2-1, and you have the Colts. So then those teams below the Colts could have 2 losses, and then you have the West, which the first place team will be the Chargers, and then everyone behind them has 2 losses. Then you're sitting there going at 2-3, you're only a game back. We're only a game back of the wild card. And it's a whole new outlook. People are positive, but we won't forget, hey, at the end of the day, we have a mediocre quarterback, and there's still a lot of room to be improvement, but there's hope. There's hope when you're 2-3. And most importantly, there is hope because you'll probably be playing the Chargers at home. They'll be undefeated. I'm going to assume they'll be 5-0. Okay? And they come to Miami, and that will be a very big moment for the Miami Dolphins. It will be, and I've said this every season, there's arguably the biggest games of their careers. Last year, it was Tua and the Miami Dolphins when they went to Green Bay. This is arguably one of the biggest games of the Miami Dolphins franchise in the last 25 years, and for Tua's career, and they failed. Just a reminder, that was one of those moments. If you beat Green Bay, the wheels start moving, and we're back to our normal team, and we're a playoff team last year. That's all we had to do was beat Green Bay, and it just changes everything. Okay. The year before that, it was the Bills game. This is the biggest game of the Miami Dolphins' career, right? Because if they beat the Bills, they win the division. Bills have to come back. We have to play them the next week. Do we win? I don't know, but it was a big game coming off that Ravens loss, which you felt like the team knew they weren't good enough to be in the playoffs, and we wouldn't have had to play the Chiefs. So either way, another big game, biggest game of their career, that this will be another opportunity because they will be 2-3. There's light at the end of the tunnel, and now you're playing the best team in the AFC, arguably, besides the Bills. And they're coming home, and if you win, you're 3-3, and the narrative changes. Everybody in the media, everybody outside the building is like, oh, Dolphins have won 3 in a row. We were wrong. They needed to fix some things, and now they have momentum. It will be a huge win for Mike McDaniel, for Tua, and for the GM. And you would argue that would save everyone's job until the very end of the season. That's what would happen. So now if they lose any of the next 3 games, and the Chargers being it, if you lose that game when we're 2-4, I would think that now you're 6 weeks in. Do you start shopping the players? You're 2-4. How bad do we don't beat a good team again? And then the problem is the following weeks you have the Browns and Ravens. So it's you could be 2-4 and be like, we could get to 4-4, and then you play the Ravens on Thursday night on a short week, and it's what, you're just gonna lose to them, and then it's the same story again. You know what I mean? Now we're stuck in mediocrity. I feel like the Chargers game is a game to decide whether or not you want to blow this team up. if you win the next two. Now, if we lose one of the next two, it's it. Sound the alarms, trade these players. Trade Tyreek, trade Jalen, trade Chubb, maybe Sealer. I guess you keep Waddle and Achane, like that's the young part of the team. I don't want to like trade them. But so that's where I'm kind of like, I'm just thinking out loud, if that's how you guys are feeling, like if we win these two, do we start to get the little delusional again? Reminding ourselves we're not good enough to win a playoff game with this team. We're not good enough to win anything, but can we be entertained? Can the Dolphins entertain us? Can we win the next two and be sitting there going, well, if we beat the Chargers, we're back in it. Can we be that? Can we do that? And that's all we have to hope for, to be honest, as fans. As a fan, it's 1 week at a time, and we're like, let's beat the Jets. Then let's go to Carolina and let's beat Carolina. And both of these teams, they fought. They've been fighting in their last two games. Carolina won. They killed Atlanta. That was out of the blue. All it did was make us think, oh, maybe Atlanta's not as good. Who knows? But 4 of the next 5 games, I feel like you might be favored. So if you did beat the Chargers, is there a road to 5-3? There's the delusion. You get to 5-3, now we're talking. And we're like 5-3, 9 games left. You got to go 5-4. You got to go 5-4, make the playoffs. And what does that do? It saves McDaniel's job. Does it save the GM's job? I don't know. I hope not. But I hope that maybe they've seen enough to where regardless, there's a lot of quarterbacks coming out that our first round pick is a quarterback next year. I don't care if it's pick 10, if it's pick 15, if it's pick 25. Let's take a quarterback that we think can compete for the job. I think I've seen enough. And I would have to see drastic changes. How about this? We would have to go 5-0 in the next 5 games. We have to go 5-3, and there's not one turnover from Tua. Because right now, Tua's playing like what Josh Allen was his first 4 seasons. And now Josh Allen, he doesn't turn the ball over at all. Last year or this year, he just doesn't turn the ball over. The guy used to always turn the ball over. Now it's like if you're playing the Dolphins, you're like, we're going to get 1 turnover out of Tua. A fumble or an interception. We're definitely going to get a sack, at least 1 or 2, which are drive killers for us because we're not converting 3rd and longs. So that's where I'm at. So, it's kind of annoying because it's like the worst thing possible happened in the Bills game. They played so tough that you're like, well, shit, man. They're still fighting, so we got to still cheer. As fans, we still got to cheer for them, man. If they're going to play the way they played against the Bills, sure, doing bonehead things to lose a game, what bad teams do. But if they're going to fight and come out and score on the first drive and be in the fourth quarter tied 21-21, then we got to keep cheering because they're still playing. And then there's hope with the schedule. And all you can do is we hope we see this Jets game. And is it like a comfortable game where we're not biting our nails? Where we're like, okay, we're winning and we're going to win. But it's closer than people. It's not going to be a blowout. I mean, at this time of the year when teams are 0-3, 1-2, 1-3, like they're all playing hard still because they know that there's a chance to turn it around. It's when you run into these teams that are like 1-7, 2-8, like they're like, okay, maybe it's a little bit easier. But you never know, man. Like, look, the Browns upset the Packers. That's a reminder of how hard it is in the NFL. So, none of these games are going to be easy, but the delusion train starts on Monday night. Give us 1 win and let us be a little delusion because then we can be, all right, Carolina, all right, probably won't win, but if we did beat the Chargers, man, I'm all in again. If we win 3 in a row and we're going to the Browns and there's a chance where we're like, oh, we're going to be 4-3, it's exciting because all the sports shows will talk about it too. Because I already know Rich Eisen's Overreaction Monday segment going into October 20th on Monday. Chris Brockman will say, Miami Dolphins are making the playoffs. Overreaction or not. And Rich will be like, boy, I got to be honest. That's not an overreaction right now. Did you see how they looked against the Chargers? And then they beat Cleveland and they're 4-3. They won 4 in a row. They're playing for Mike right now. I can see it. I can see it. And again, this is me being delusional, but it doesn't mean I think there's something at the end of the tunnel where we're like, wow, we were wrong and we owe Tua an apology. We do not. But do I see a December where we're like, man, we got Bengals, Steelers. In December, we have Steelers, Bengals, Bucks, and then we play the Patriots. Revenge. But is there a chance where we're sitting there in December going, well, hopefully the Bengals are out of it so Burrow doesn't play? What's the point of playing him? You know? No point of rushing him because Burrow's not going to play in December if they're out of it already. So then that could be like one of those games where we're like, cool, now we just got to play Tampa and Patriots. Got to win one of two. Is there a world where that happens? Maybe. All right, that's where I'm at with those things around the league. Lions are back to normal. I think we could agree on that. I think the Lions are great, and it was just one of those week one hiccups. But to me, they're exactly how they have been the last 2 years. I'm rooting for them. I want them to come out of the NFC. I would say it's them or the Bucks I would want to come out of the NFC. Obviously, the Eagles won, so I don't care to see them. And also, Philly is annoying. But yeah, I like them. And seeing the Packers, you're like, look, they're both 2-1 now, and 2 weeks later, I think the Lions play. If they play them again, I think the Lions win. Who's gonna win the NFC West? Still don't know. I said that last week, and I couldn't tell you. Would you be shocked if I told you the Seahawks won it? No, because like the 49ers, obviously Purdy's hurt, but it's still like they're ugly wins. You know what I mean? But they're 3-0. Rams, 2-1, should have won. They should have been 3-0. They should be 3-0 right now. Sometimes you get unlucky. Probably the best team in the West. But as the season goes on, does Stafford, regress? Who knows? I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if any of those three teams won. Cardinals, 2-1. Would you be shocked if they turned around? It's not like they're bad. So I don't know who's winning the NFC West. A very exciting division to pay attention to. I think outside of that, I think we know the North is the Bucks. It's their division, and it's only their division. Okay? And then you have, the South. And then you have the North with the Vikings, Packers, and Lions and Bears. And it's like, oh my. And it's like, yeah, Detroit probably wins it. But then the Packers will be right there. And then the Bears, I think, would come in. I don't know. Because the Vikings played great. And you're like, I don't know. But I think I know that that's a competitive division. But I feel like it's the Packers or Lions. And then right now, it's just only the Eagles are gonna take that division. And then, like, are we going to see this consistently from Washington? Or does Daniels take a sophomore slump? And then the West looks like it's, the Chargers have a 3.5 game lead over the Chiefs, the Raiders, and are not going to be near there. And the Broncos will turn it around, I expect. But, like, are they not as good? And will Bo Nix have a sophomore slump? I wasn't, for me, I was high on Bo Nix. I was telling everyone, go watch his, like, highlights from last year. I think he's one of the best. And we have to give it more time. But I liked Bo Nix, but we'll see. And then the South is just shocking. I would like to see the Jags come out, but the Colts look great, and that's a fun story. And it's a shocker that Houston's 0-3. And then, the North is probably just going to be the Ravens, but they're 1-2. And that's crazy. So who's going to win the NFC West is more of the question for me. I don't have a really question. I guess you could argue who's going to win the NFC North. That could be a valid question too. Herbert is clearly going to haunt us forever. And he kind of always has. But then we've made excuses when he's lost in the playoffs and been like, see, we didn't make a mistake. We did. We have to accept it. It's time to move on and accept that we made a mistake. We made a mistake. We should have never drafted Tua. And I think going forward, everyone in the franchise or everyone who's a fan of the franchise, I never want to draft a guy again who's not above 6'2". Like, they got to be minimum 6'3" and have a big arm. I want a guy who has a big arm and can scramble and is tall. That's it. 3 requirements. They don't even have to be the best, but in today's league, you got to be tall, you got to have a strong arm, and you got to be able to run for 100 yards. I want a guy that can run for 100 yards. He doesn't need to every game, but you got to run. You got to be able to run and scramble and put your head down, and I'm not afraid that you're going to get concussed. That's just going forward. And Herbert right now, you could argue, is an MVP, and that's going to haunt us forever. There's no doubt. There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to have a better – he already has had a better career. Oh, Tua led the league in passing. Get over it. Get over it. Herbert's been to a Pro Bowl too. He's going to have better numbers when his career's all said and done, and he's going to win playoff games. They got Harbaugh. Harbaugh's that good. You knew once they signed Harbaugh, we were doomed. Okay? Maybe there was going to be a world where we could win in this window, but like you knew once they signed Harbaugh, the Chargers are not going to not be good. He's going to be a good coach. They're going to figure it out, and now look at them. And then, like, at the end of the day, if we're not going to win it, then I want the Bills or Ravens to come out. You know, would it hurt more if the Chargers came out of the AFC? You know, would you rather have the Chargers? Well, now, let me ask you. Here's a good question for Dolphin fans. Would you rather the Chargers come out and be representatives and play in the Super Bowl, or the Bills? At least with the Bills, you were like, yeah, well, we can't beat them and they're the best. And Josh Allen's one of the most exciting players to watch. Or do you not root for the Bills because they're in our division and they're supposed to be the team that we hate, but for whatever reason, I don't hate them like I hate the Jets or Patriots, but you want the Chargers to go. But then if the Chargers go, it stings more because we could have drafted Herbert. So that's my thing. So then that's by default, we go for the Ravens. You're like, we want Lamar. At least Lamar's from South Florida, right? At least Lamar is a Pompano kid who came from Florida. So, like, there's a little bit of loyalty if you're a South Florida fan. If you're just a fan of all South Florida sports, then you're like, all right, well, let's go Lamar. But, you know, I would like to see the Ravens, Bills, or Chargers make it to the Super Bowl, not the Chiefs. That's for sure. So, I mean, or even if it was the Jags, maybe even that. But I don't know. I think I'd rather see the Bills. I would root for the Bills as of right now. You know, if I'm gonna be if it's gonna be the playoffs and the Dolphins aren't playing, I'm probably hoping that the Bills go. And I don't know if that's a bad thing to say, but that's just how I feel. So I don't know where you guys are on that. Power rankings after week 3, we had a big switch up, and people jumped up and people dropped down. I have the same 10 teams in my top 10 as last week. But there's been a movement of all spots, actually. Starting with number 10 is the Rams, 2-1. They're not falling out of the top 10. If they won, they would be in the top 5. But they didn't, so they're 10. Ravens at 1-2. I still think if the Ravens and Rams played tomorrow, the Ravens are winning. They lost 2 games this year. Well, guess what? 2 of the games they've lost are to teams that are in the top 5. So, you know, it's like college rankings. Ravens are at 9. Packers, very ugly loss, but I still got to put them at 8. I'm not going to drop them below the Ravens. They're still 2-1. They still probably have one of the best defenses consistently we've seen through 3 weeks. Just offensively fell apart against the Browns. 49ers, an ugly 3-0, but they still got to be above those other 3 teams because they're undefeated. Okay? And that's scary with all the injuries they have. That's scary. It means it's a good team. It's well coached, and they're figuring it out. Okay? And the surprise one, number 6 is the Colts. 3-0, no turnovers. Daniel Jones, let's go. Let's go. This is awesome. Okay? And number 5, I saw enough to be like, I'm back on this train, and that's why the Lions, I moved them up to 5. They're 2-1. Tough loss to the Packers, but they're way above the Packers. I'm back on this train. And, you know, if they keep going, let's see if they keep scoring this much, they're going to work their way up and be one of the best teams. You know, are they better than the Eagles? I don't know yet. The Eagles are undefeated, but we'll get to that. Bucks are undefeated. They're 4. And we love Baker Mayfield. So Bucks are at 4, undefeated. All the top 4 teams are undefeated. The only one in the top 5 that isn't is the Lions. I can't put the Colts in the top 5. I can't yet. All right? They've beaten bad teams. Okay? Lions are at 5, Bucks at 4, Chargers at 3, and then you know who the top 2 teams are. Right now, I wouldn't be shocked if this was a Super Bowl. I dropped the Eagles from 1 to 2 because they almost lost, and the Bills are at 1. So Bills and Eagles are at the top 2, probably your Super Bowl favorites right now, and that's where it is. let me know what you guys think in the comments. Yeah, I'm excited. We have a Monday night game. Fins up, dude.